We set this time aside every week for the mayor of Kansas City, kind enough to join us, Quinton Lucas on KCMO Talk Radio, and fresh off, as I see, a trip to Philadelphia, where President Biden launched his Blacks for Biden 2024 re-election bid yesterday. So you know the question everybody has, so I'll ask you right out of the gates, Mr. Mayor, who's paying for the trip?
These have typically been paid for by the campaign. So last week, as you remember, I was in Detroit, Michigan, this week in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They are very active and interested in the support of surrogates. So that would be the Biden-Harris campaign or other kind of vestiges of that. Something that I certainly appreciate having the opportunity to do, because I know, as you are probably a charter member of the Blacks for Biden effort, it is something important that we get a message out. So that's where it comes from, not a trip where the taxpayers are paying for Quinton Lucas to go around the country and campaign for political cause.
Okay. All right. Now, I've got to ask you this because we were just talking about this earlier in the show. You tell me, as a black man, I'm not identifying as one today, so I'm not part of the charter movement. But like he's quoting the King of Gospel, James Cleveland, yesterday, which of course Hillary Clinton infamously did, back in 2008 in the church. I mean, isn't there? It just feels so patronizing to me to quote the same gospel song 15 years ago. Joe Biden's using it today. What am I missing as a guy sitting here from afar looking at it from 1,500 miles away?
I think certainly the president is speaking to a number of different folks. The reason that Mrs. Clinton would have cited it years ago was because it continues to be something that is relatable to black folks all around the country. I was sitting next to a mayor from Virginia. There were, of course, lots of Pennsylvanians there yesterday who appreciated the president, I think, spending particular time in the black community, recognizing how pivotal blacks were to him ever becoming the Democratic nominee back in 2020, and certainly how pivotal black voters will be in states like Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. I think it is something that's important for him to make sure he's mentioning. So, while some, I think, may accuse the president or the campaign of pandering, what I heard was actually kind of almost a homecoming type of trip. Kamala Harris, who I don't think gets half the positive attention that she deserves, gave, in my opinion, a very rousing speech that fired up the crowd. President Biden, I think, made clear a few different things. One, namely how important it is that he comes back because he's actually delivered for the black community. I won't quote a campaign speech, but he did cite how President Trump, then candidate Trump, said, hey, black people, you should vote for me because what the hell do you have to lose? And I think the president yesterday, President Biden, made clear there are a lot of things to lose, from health care to student loan investments to insulin prices and beyond. And I think that's what it was really about yesterday rather than any type of pandering.
Okay. All right. Mayor Lucas is here on KCMO Talk Radio. So this for you, how do you listen? There's a lot going on back here in Kansas City. How do you plan these next few months to walk this fine line of saying, I've got a lot of work to do in this town. Kansas City residents expect me to do this job. They've elected me for a second term to do this job, knowing all you've got on your plate here. You mentioned last week you have a second son on the way coming up next month, while also being active on the Biden campaign. How do you balance this, and how do Kansas City residents benefit from all this?
Well, I think Kansas City residents benefit in a few different ways. First of all, I do think that a lot of the support that we've had from this administration, as you've seen, I have helped out the Biden campaign in the last 2 weeks. Secretary Pete Buttigieg of the Department of Transportation was here the week before. The attention and focus that Kansas City is able to get from, I think, our engagement with the current administration is a good thing. And I would say that regardless. And so I plan to continue to do that because these folks will be in power at least through January of 2025. I hope long after. I think in terms of how you balance it, it's very easy, right? It's, first of all, I work most hours of the day, which I think you kind of do too. And so it's staying actively engaged always in what's happening. I have become quite the aficionado of the day trip. So day trip to Philadelphia yesterday. It was a day trip to Detroit last week, in the same way that I would expect that, when you look at our swing states, fortunately, the joy of living in Kansas City, something we all appreciate, is it's easy to get to Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, any number of places very quickly. And, these aren't trips going to, South America or something. So that part is easy to balance. And my focus is always on home. First, taking care of my house and my child and my family will be a priority in the months ahead, but also certainly making sure that we have handled what we need to in Kansas City. The realities are that we passed a budget in the spring. I'm proud of it. We're getting money out. It's helping us hire more cops, helping us do important work. We continue to have a few other kind of big things that we do over the summer, but traditionally in local government and state government politics, it's a slightly slower schedule over the summer months where people are campaigning. And this summer, rather than, knocking doors for myself, unlike perhaps I had to do a bit of last summer, this gives me a chance to do something that I think is really vital for the future of our country.
Mayor Lucas is on KCMO. Speaking of the future of Kansas City, where are we at? And it's something that came up yesterday when I was looking at some articles online about a place shutting down on the plaza. Where are we at on the sale of the plaza to this group, HP Village Partners out of Dallas? It was announced last fall, but I feel like nothing's come of it here the last few months.
I am so excited. Sorry to step on you there. I am excited. I think you will see progress over the weeks ahead. We will have more to announce. I mean, look, there are a bunch of Kansas City doomsdayers, some of whom call your show occasionally, almost all of whom seem to be in my social media comments. But look, I think that we will see a positive resolution and hundreds of millions of dollars of new investment on the Country Club Plaza in the weeks ahead. We continue to move forward on all of our different downtown, east side, west bottoms redevelopments. I mean, there continues to be this great renaissance in Kansas City. And perhaps like us as individuals or our families, and I would never say that we're perfect. We've got a lot to work on. We continue to be plagued by gun violence. I had a chance to talk yesterday to members of the administration about that and the work that they're trying to do to help us combat it. But I think you will see on the plaza outstanding investment. The plaza still has our most competitive office space and rates in Kansas City. You continue to see people who are wanting to build multifamily housing there. Retail is challenged in other parts of our region as well, but I think you'll see recovery. And so I would expect in the next few weeks here on this show, we have a chance to announce even more. And I will note this for you, Pete. In recent weeks, we've broken a lot of news on this show. We make everybody listen to it. So I hope that I have more on the plaza and other issues coming up in the weeks ahead to talk to you about.
Well, that is certainly true. There's no doubt about that. So with that being said, speaking of news, this was on Tony's Kansas City last night, and it is from Gwen Grant, a letter that she wrote, president, of course, of the Urban League of Greater Kansas City, suggesting that it's time to kind of coalesce around a candidate in the Jackson County prosecutor's race. And she is suggesting that person be Melissa Johnson, who is your director of public safety. As this race continues to, I think, get more attention in the weeks ahead, as it should over the next few months, what do you think about the letter written by Gwen Grant and how this thing plays out over the next few weeks?
I am a regular reader of Tony's, even if I don't necessarily I rarely appreciate the commentary, but I do read it. One thing that I think he said correctly was what you had actually said, which was that this is one of the more important races that has not necessarily gotten the attention yet, and for years hasn't, because we've had an incumbent and they haven't really been competitive races. This is going to be a vital one. I think Melissa Johnson is an exceptional candidate. You see her out there pounding the pavement, not just in Kansas City, but in eastern Jackson County, I think making the connections necessary. To the point made perhaps by Ms. Grant, I have not seen that candidate, Stephanie Burton, having that same level of energy. Particularly, I've seen Ms. Johnson, and then, I have seen Mr. Gromowski, another candidate around. I think Ms. Grant's direction, that it kind of become a race where you can look at two competing visions, where you have a good discussion, I think is actually an apt one. And I would recommend that too. That's kind of what I'm seeing. And I say this not just necessarily as mayor, but as a Jackson County resident who's saying, I want to know somebody who can get out there to every community, who knows how to talk to people, whether they be in Independence or inner city KCMO, Grandview, Lee Summit, wherever, and importantly, have real approaches to how they fight violent crime, particularly people who have been in the prosecutor's office, which is Ms. Johnson, which is Mr. Gromowski. I don't know the background of Ms. Burton as well. And so, I think that is something that's important. But I've been impressed by Melissa. I've been very impressed by the work that she continues to do. I know she's been on this show. I'll let her speak for herself. But, I think she is a very strong candidate, and I'm always excited to see a new, vibrant, young candidate with prosecutorial experience who understands the important balance we need between enforcement and all the other things we do, but with enforcement being a strong part of it.
Mm-hmm. And you think, we know that she works for you. Are you going to push your thumb on the scale of that race in the weeks ahead as that thing moves forward?
I will continue to, kind of evaluate, and I think I will probably play some role in the race. Hopefully it's an additive one. It's a lot of people don't want my endorsement, so I won't make an endorsement, say, in the Missouri Republican gubernatorial race. Go Bill Eigel. But, in this one, maybe I'll have, a few things to say. Look, I think this issue is too important to kind of sleepwalk through it. I get sometimes not playing in things, but and maybe from a perspective that you wouldn't think. But I spend a lot of time with law enforcement, believe it or not. I know there are people who disagree with me, but, I spend a lot of time with them. I think for those particularly, you see a lot of that leadership now who recognize that there needs to be a good balance between your community engagement, but also your enforcement. You need a prosecutor who's delivering on the enforcement side. I think Ms. Johnson absolutely can do that. I don't know the other candidates as well. Perhaps we'll have a chance to get to know each other better, but if not, that would be the way I'm going, and I'll make sure we make that clear over the weeks ahead, knowing the race is coming soon.
Well, Bill Eigel's social media team has just tweeted out the endorsement of Mayor Lucas. So we are grateful for the time, Mr. Mayor. We'll be in touch, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great week.
Hey, have a great week. Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right. That is Quinton Lucas on KCMO Talk Radio.